Hi Nick, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So obviously the most dangerous game is a story that I don't know if they still teach it in school, but I remember reading it when I was in high school and being obsessed with this idea of a man just forcing people to be hunted. But what
Yeah.
I like about the show is that it kind of gives a little bit more uh, control to the person being hunted because they're aware of it. They kind of sign up for it and they know what's at stake. And so for you, how was it kind of balancing what so many of us know about the most dangerous game with the concept of the show and heading into season two with this particular storyline?
Yeah, you want to balance what people expect, which is things that they will remember from the short story from a million years ago, and also what they
Mm-hmm.
remember from season one. So that they're going to expect a certain level of excitement, a certain level of twists and turns, a certain level of fast-paced action. But then you want to balance that with what's new, because if it's the same exact thing, then no one's going to like it. So
Mm-hmm.
you balance out new hunters, new ways of escape, new dramatic elements as to why this hunter wants to survive, why they're joining, or why this runner, excuse me, wants to survive, why they're joining the game. Because, like you said, there were rules. The runner has to agree to be in the
Mm-hmm.
game. Otherwise, there's nobility. There's no nobility in the
Mm-hmm.
people that are hunting him or her. So that's the balance.
Yeah, and I think with I don't remember like the short story again. I read it in high school. I was obsessed with it, but I read it in high school, and that has been a while ago. Um, but I remember just kind of like the remoteness of it and it being like this guy crashes and then suddenly is part of this hunt and
Yeah.
he didn't know what was going on. This is obviously different because the first one I believe was Detroit and now we're in New York City. So they're hunting in these big cities. Is that a challenge to kind of navigate like you're in a major metropolis uh
Yeah.
versus,
It's a
what the
challenge.
short story was?
It's a challenge production wise,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to film in these cities, and from the most boring logistical things of getting permits and the expense of paying for the locations, because it's pretty pricey for the studio and we have to stay on budget and those things. There's a challenge. There's also the challenge of when you're shooting in a crowd and there's a big crowd in the street. Half the people are just trying to get to work. Some of them are your extras and background actors, and half of them are trying to catch a bus, and they don't care if you're filming. They need to get to work, and I understand that. So there's that challenge. From a story perspective, I think it's easier. I think it's easier to write a story. If I had to write a story in a small town that had four streets and one stop sign, where's the guy going to hide? Where's the
Behind
runner
that
going
one
to go?
stop sign.
Yeah. So it's a, in Detroit, in New York, you have subway systems, you have skyscrapers, you have tourist attractions, you have outer boroughs, you have all of these things. And New York, it wasn't just New York City. It's New
Mhm.
York City, it's Brooklyn, it's Long Island, it's the Bronx, it's Staten Island. Those are the parameters of this hunt. So you really got to see, as someone who's from New York, if you can't hear it in my accent, there's you really got to see what New York looks like and how
Mhm.
different it can look. For a 45-minute train ride, you're in another world.
Yeah, and it is funny though, because I live in New York, and one of my pet peeves is being like, how did they get to so and like they were just in the East
Yeah,
Village? How did they get uptown in 20 seconds? Like that doesn't
I
work that
know.
way.
No.
Um, but so obviously you being from New York gives an advantage because you understand, yes, it's going to take 45 minutes if you're on First Ave and you're trying to get uptown.
Yeah.
But when you're doing something like that, is there anything that you get bogged down on because obviously you are from New York with the logistics of a show like this, or was it more just like, no, I understand the city and I understand where he can hide. I'm just going with my gut and not
Yeah.
worrying
No.
about, that kind of stuff.
When you're writing it, you're just trying to write the best story you can, and then when you're producing it, then you start making compromises. And then you start having to drop scenes because it's like we can't, we shoot some of it in New York, we shoot some of it outside of
Mhm.
New York. You have to match it for New York. um One of my favorite parts is there's an abandoned hospital in an overgrown area of Staten Island.
Mhm.
And people are saying, you go to Staten Island, there's parts of Staten Island looks like the country. Like it's just I mean, it's beautiful. Staten Island is a wonderful place. And there's this overgrown woodsy area with this abandoned hospital in it. You can go on YouTube and there are people that go urban exploring there. And I don't think they're
Mhm.
supposed to. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm saying watch it on YouTube. But we found a place outside of Staten Island that really matched it nicely. And that's where the credit goes to our locations team and our production team for finding those
Mhm.
places. So those are the challenges. But when you're writing it, to be honest, you're just trying to write the most exciting thing. And then when you're producing it, you're trying to actually make it happen. And sometimes, you have to compromise a little bit. But in this season, I didn't feel like we had to. I think we found great locations. It really looks good. Sam Hill, who directed it, just directed the heck out of it. And it looks really great. I mean, we had a great team.
Yeah, I was waiting for one shot where he's just like on the F line, just like sitting, just like I'm just and it's delayed, so you're just stuck in the middle.
Yeah, you're just stuck there.
Just stuck sitting on the F. With it though, obviously, like I'm sure you get a lot of comparisons to that short story because, like I said, most of us had to read it in school at some point or another. But this is kind of its own juggernaut aside from the name. And so what were you ever kind of like when you were writing and coming up with it and workshopping it, just not thinking at all about the idea of like, yes, this is infamous for a man hunting other people, or was it just kind of like you focused primarily on this story and this character and what his journey was?
Yeah, I just really focus on this particular story.
Mhm.
Roku asked for something exciting. They just give us something exciting, something with some heart, with a little bit of comedy or levity here or there, gallows humor, because it is a pretty serious, but
They're,
stuff like
they're
that.
hunting you.
And and so you're just thinking about those characters at that
Mhm.
time. I do every once in a while, the gentleman who wrote the short story almost 100 years ago, Connell. Um, I created a character named Connell, or named this character Connell in this series, just as a tip of the hat to a fellow writer who's long
Mhm.
since passed. But we don't get to do this without his creativity, so many decades ago. So that kind of sits in your head. But you just want to give Roku something that you know, that this Friday, when people can watch it for free on Roku, on all the various ways you can watch Roku, starting this Friday, you want to give it something that their viewers and subscribers and users and fans will enjoy. That's the real
Yeah.
goal. That's all you're really thinking about.
Yeah, and I am gonna age myself a little bit. If I knew about Christoph Waltz in the way that I do now when I read that short story, I would have been like, yes, this is perfect casting for like he's not
It's
the hunter, but he is the guy like organizing the entire thing. And so I was like,
I would say
uh,
Christoph Waltz playing anything is perfect casting because
that is true.
he's so good. You could cast him as one of the Little Women in Little Women, and he would be amazing.
Make a
So
great Beth. He
yeah,
would
he'd be fantastic. He could voice Judy Jetson in a cartoon of the Jetson. He's so great at everything he does, and our whole cast is phenomenal. David and Anna
Mhm.
Gunn and everyone else up and down the line. There are times where I'll just be watching it. I'll go on the other day because we're premiering again this Friday on Roku. I watched season one of Most Dangerous Game on Roku 1 or 2 days ago, and I looked at it and I just went, "Wow, I wrote something that Christoph Waltz wanted to do. I can retire. Like I'm done.
I'm
It's
done. I finished
yeah,
it.
I'm done. I'm done." And he's so humble that every once in a while I've mentioned it in front of him. I'm like, "What? I can't believe you did this." And he just goes, "Why is that shocking to you? I read something, I liked it, I wanted to do it." Like he doesn't realize how big a deal he is.
My roommate used to work for his agent, and so every day she would come home and I'd be like, "How was Christoph?"
Yeah.
And she would just check in on him because I was like, I'm obsessed with.
Always a gentleman. He's always nice. I've never seen him be anything but just friendly and professional and kind, and a pleasure to work with, honestly.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. I
Oh no, thank you.
this this story is one of my favorites, so I loved watching this series.
That makes me happy. I would hate to take something that was a good childhood memory for you and ruin it. So
A good childhood memory of a story about
yeah,
killing
well,
people.
it's all make believe. It does,
Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.